Hi, I'm Eileen Roche, founder of Designs and Machine Embroidery, and thanks for joining me today. We have a hot topic, organizing thread and fabric, but I love all your comments. Well, first off, Barbara Jones, you said you can't believe you're on time today. Well, welcome. I understand that feeling. I'm often not on time either. I am on time for this, but sometimes it's a race to the finish. But boy, lots of you are piping in and you're telling us where you're watching from. And in some parts, it is really cold. Retha Ranke, I got to find your comment because you said, I think, negative 21, minus 21 this morning, and it's warmed up to 7 degrees. Holy moly, that is cold. That is cold. Kansas City, winner of last week's Super Bowl. Congratulations. Cold in Kansas City and icy. And then, Esther Ahoplin up in Canada. Nice to have you here. And my friend Becky Mums, she's up in North Texas. That's where we are also. And she's right. Yesterday was almost 80 degrees, 78 degrees, or almost, yeah, I guess it was 76, 78. And this morning, 38. It's crazy living here. I'm telling you. You never put any clothes away. You have to have all your seasons available in the closet because you never know when you're going to need a heavy coat or, capris and a t-shirt. Let's see. Reem Wilcoxon, thanks for joining us today. She's up in Indiana, our good friend from Embroidery Garden, and they're getting snow. Love to hear that. Love to hear that. So, snowy, cold days are good times to think about thread and fabric organization. But isn't one of the best things about our hobby is the colorful mess that we can surround ourselves in, right? So the tips that we're going to talk about today are controlling this colorful mess and saving a little bit of space on fabric storage. And then finally, while organizing your thread also saves you time and effort because, it's the beginning of a project, the setup, the getting ready to do it, that can take the most time. So if we're a little bit organized, we can save time in that prep. So let's go ahead over to PowerPoint and we will get kind of started on this. I have 2 mice today, so if you'll bear with me, I'm never really sure when the next one's coming. Thread. I think you all know this, and if you don't, it's a good reminder. Never store thread by a window in the sunlight. It's okay to have it in a lit room, but you most certainly don't want any sunlight on it. It will damage the fibers. So, this is just a plastic container. And basically, I staged this photo just to hit home with that point that you would never want to store thread in front of a window. But many of us have our sewing machines very close to a window because it could possibly be the best light in your sewing room. And if that's the case, then make sure you get out of the habit of maybe leaving a lot of spools around the machine. Many of us, guilty for sure, where I'll leave, yesterday's embroidery design colors around my machine and not put them away. So this exposure to sunlight over, the course of a day, 2 days, 3 days, and, continued can kind of break down the fibers. It's just not a good thing to do. So just get in the habit of putting them away for sure. And where do you put it? Well, thread racks is where I put it, on the wall. Now, this rack is too crowded for the mini king spools, right? As you can see, the end caps are overlapped. So when I go to retrieve a spool off of that rack, I'm most certainly going to dismantle 2 or 3 at the same time. And that's not so good. So you definitely want to look for a thread rack that has ample space between the pins, so to accommodate your type of spool. We use the exquisite thread here at Dime. That's our brand, what we sell. And so we need a spacing of 2.5 inches between pins. And we do sell a wood rack, 60 spool wood rack that has that spacing. It's ideal for all the mini kings that are out there. So, just pay attention when you're buying a thread rack to get the distance between the pins and also the height of the pin. Our pins measure 2.5 inches in height, I think. So that's ample to hold a mini king. So let's see, Carolyn Booth, you turn every other spool upside down to fit on your thread rack. Well, that is a workaround for sure for a crowded rack. I would not really prefer that. I want to see the pretty thread upright. I also want to see the colored number because I'm often working by color number, and I'll show you why in a minute. Sometimes, we have different ways to approach projects. Sometimes I approach from the number, and sometimes I approach just from the color. So we'll take a look at that in just a second. Okay. When you're placing those spools on your rack, I like to color sort them. It makes it easier to find a specific green or blue if they're all lined up in a row, and they're beautiful. I mean, it's a rainbow. I'm going to go back to that previous slide, and here you can see there's no color sorting. They are spaced properly, but it's going to take me a while to hunt down, apple green 1417, right? So this is a kind of a time waster, but when they're in a rainbow, not only are they pretty, but they are, easy to find. Now, so let's see. You have a lot of comments here. Anne Philback, she uses canned air once a week on her threads on the wall to blow off the dust. That's a great idea, a really great idea. Let me see. And Sue Brown says she enjoys hunting for the perfect color thread. I agree. I have a sister who's an artist, a painter, and she creates her color, right? She sees it in her mind, and she literally takes different paint and makes a new shade herself. We don't really have the ability to do that with thread. We have a limited palette, right? Now, it can be a wide palette, like the Exquisite Thread brand has 288 colors. So that's a very generous offering of color. And the only way I can maybe get a thread color that's not of those 288 is to blend and layer thread on top of another in the digitizing process. But frankly, that's a lot of work, and it's a lot of thread buildup, something I probably wouldn't do. But I'm just saying. So my sister, she gets to create. We have a limited palette, which in a way is good, but it does make the hunt a lot of fun, right? Let's see. Just trying to take a look. Heidi Egan, she even color sorts the clothes in her closet. Brilliant. It is a trend for sure in home decorating organization to organize by color. And you'll even see bookcases that all the blue books are on one shelf and all the red are on another shelf. Now, I think that works if you have a photographic memory and you can see the title of the book that you are searching for in your mind's eye, and it has a red cover. So you would go to the red shelf. But if you don't have that, you're going to spend a lot of time searching. So let's see some of these other comments. And Mary Bigot, your thread is in a drawers color sorted. Well, that is a popular way also to store thread in a drawer. Personally, I like to see my thread on a wall. I consider it art, and I just love how it fills the wall with color. But I understand why many people like things away and, stored in a tidy fashion. I just want to make sure that I'm getting all the comments that are really important. Let's see. So you stopped, Carolyn McPherson says she stopped using the thread rack because of the concern for dust, and the canned air may be the answer. You could also, now this doesn't make it look like art anymore, but you could drape a piece of fabric over your thread, and then you won't have any problem with it. Okay. Stephanie is a Virgo, so she organizes by color too. I love that. And Cheryl Johnson she sorts by number. So there's a brilliance to that also. And I think that depends on how your brain works. Many of us are, more of a graphic memory, and we see color, and others memorize numbers and associate the spool number with that specific color. So if that's what works for you, Cheryl, keep at it, right? That's awesome. Okay, let's see. And Sue Brown says she doesn't worry about dust because she's always using the thread on the thread rack. I don't worry about dust either. My thread doesn't really get time to get dusty, which is a blessing, right? I'm always stitching. Okay, so let's see what's next. This can often happen if you are going to class or even going on a trip and you're bringing threads with you, and maybe you don't have a nice tidy box to take with you. We all use Ziploc bags. They're so handy, right? You have to make sure that you keep that zipper closed. But often when you arrive at your destination, this is what faces you. So not so great. So I'm going to hunt down a spool of thread, and then we'll go over to the overhead camera, which I don't really have staged properly, but you'll forgive me. So on our exquisite spools, we have a snap bottom. So that clicks open, you just pull it down, and you place that thread tail inside that groove. You kind of need to have it a little extended, and then just snap it shut, and now it will stay closed. Now, what if in that image that I just showed you, where you had all that excess thread all jumbled off of the spool? So what I would do, and what my friend Deborah Jones most certainly has told me to do, is just spool that all off. The jumbled mess, not this specific spool, because this one was nice and tidy when we pulled it, but just remove all that and then cut that thread and then secure the new end in that end cap and just toss away the old part that was all jumbled and loose in the bag, because it won't you don't want to stitch on it. Now, could you use it for another project like confetti or something like that? You sure could. And lots of people like to keep all their thread tails, put them in a bowl or something, and then they would do some fiber art craft, with it. But don't sew with it. Don't embroider those parts. So this is awesome. Yeah, so many of you, you love that snap bottom. Isn't it great? I know. It is awesome. I love it. And thanks to all you folks for, sharing your love for exquisite thread. Isn't it awesome? If you want a thread that doesn't shred and is dependable and you can count on it to stitch beautifully with every stitch, Exquisite is the brand that does that. We rarely have any kind of breakage. And when we do, it's usually a needle or it's a poorly digitized machine. So let's see. Okay, Ellen Buck, she keeps her threads by color in a thread storage container for each color, and then by thread weights and kind. She has a shelf unit that she keeps the containers on with a spool unit on top for projects. She doesn't have any room on the wall. It amazes me how people find workarounds for the spaces that they stitch in. And I've had all kinds of different sewing rooms in my lifetime. My first sewing room really was kind of in a closet. I repurposed a closet, took out the clothes hanging rack, and I had a Formica shelf put in at desk height with holes drilled for the wires, and that's where my sewing machine sat. So I wasn't quilting them because you sure couldn't get very much behind that machine, but it worked. It was in a tiny house and it worked. So you never know what you're going to, what kind of space you're going to have to condense down into. And then if you're lucky and as time goes on and you get a larger sewing room, well, we tend to expand and expand and expand, right? Currently, right now, I have 2 rooms in my house that are my sewing room, but that's another whole story. Several years ago, my sister and I wrote a book on embroidery studio organization. Marie, many of you know my stitching sister, Marie Zeno, at the time lived in Ohio, and she had a commercial embroidery business out of her home. And I was here at Dime and working, running the magazine. So we wrote this book about reorganizing a sewing room. And here, I'll just give you a close-up of Marie's commercial room. Oh, I got my camera. Let's go under here because we'll get a better view. So here is her studio, where she had large rolls of stabilizer mounted on the wall. She had a countertop cut out so her machines would sit right on top. That was a beautiful studio. She has since sold that house, moved to Florida, and she is now creating a much smaller embroidery studio in her retirement home. So good for her, right? And we most certainly worked over my sewing room at the time. Let me see. I have some horrible befores, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, this book's fairly handy. So let's stay on track here. So today's special is all about spring thread, and it's only $79.99 for 24 spools. But first, I'm going to show you one way that you can use the tools that I use for my embroidery. Here, let's go to PowerPoint, please. All the tools that I use to organize my thread, and it starts in software. So in Embroidery Toolshed, and we're going to go ahead and switch over to Embroidery Toolshed, you have the ability to kind of minimize the chaos of thread offering. So this is a free design that comes with our Perfect Stitch Viewer software. And so I just loaded that design onto Embroidery Toolshed. And the first thing I'm going to do is, you notice at the bottom of the screen, there are 27 color chips. Well, at the top of the screen up here, it tells me there are really only 8 colors in this design. So why do I need all that 27? So I will click on the minus sign down here in the right corner. Click on that. And all of the extra chips that are not in the embroidery design disappear. So now I have my 8 colors that I need to stitch this design. I love the simplicity of that. It doesn't, it just cuts down on the confusion. And when I go to my color sequence, let's ungroup this. And now I can see each individual color. Oh, and look at this. This has been digitized with Madeira thread colors. So I don't use Madeira thread. I use Exquisite. So I'm going to just click on this little, it looks like a paint swatch. I'm going to click on that, and it will allow me to change my palette. So right now it tells me I'm set at Madeira Poly 90. And I want to go to Exquisite 40 2021. That's the most current. And automatically it changes those colors, gives me the closest possible color match to the Madeira that this design was digitized in. And I click OK. And now each of these designs, each of these color chips are in Exquisite 40 weight. Like, for instance, this orange is cantaloupe. And when I click on it, it tells me right here at the bottom, 649 cantaloupe number 40. It's also telling me up here that it's the Exquisite thread 40 weight 2021. And if I hover my mouse over each of the color chips, it will tell me the thread color that it is. So those are really handy for sure. Those are my top 2 tips. That's the first thing I do, is make sure I'm in the palette that I want, which is my Exquisite. And I remove those excess color chips, because as I'm working on a design and maybe I'm changing colors, of the individual segments, I don't want any confusion. If there's another 16 colors, holy moly, I'm going to get confused for sure. So, and my friend over at embroidery.com, yeah, you're welcome. I know, it's just really super easy to do that. Super easy to do that. Marianne, you never knew that you could remove those colors. Isn't that handy? It's these tiny little tips that we pick up from each other that really make us kind of master our embroidery, right? Okay, so what else do I do? Well, I showed you how to convert the colors. I also want you to know that on our website, we have a free downloadable conversion chart. So that is, it's a PDF when you download it. And in it, it says, it tells you how to, the color offerings between Floriani, Isocord, Robison Anton, and Madeira. those 4 brands and Exquisite, how you can find it. It also has a full page, double page color chip layout of the Exquisite thread. But we also have a thread chart that's actual thread. So let's go to the overhead, and here you can see all of the different colors in the chips in actual thread. And this is quite handy when you are selecting threads, maybe to coincide with fabric or the like. And of course, they're beautiful. So you can select by shade, but you can also look at the number. So for those of you who remember things by number, you can read the thread number and find its name. And then in this column, it tells you where to locate that thread on the color chart, in column 1 through 16. So that's really quite handy. Absolutely handy. Okay, so let me see what's next. Let me go back over here to get this in PowerPoint. And also, if you download that, the conversion chart, now that's not, obviously that's a digital product, right? So you would download this on paper, and in it is all the information of, converting the different colors. But then you're also going to find an article that I wrote about selecting color with confidence. So let's go over to PowerPoint, and I'll show you kind of a close-up on that. So look at that denim jacket, the embroidery on the sleeve and the yoke coordinate with the blouse that's worn underneath. And those colors were derived from the blouse. I literally laid spools on top of the fabric of the blouse and pulled the color from the print, which is a really handy way to make sure you get a beautiful match. And, if you were attracted to the garment, that blouse, and that's why you purchased it because of the color, then you'll have the confidence to select those colors from that blouse, and you're going to love the embroidery. So let's take a look. Here is a beautiful fabric that just kind of screams summer to me. And, they're lollipops on a stick. So I just place my thread spools on the fabric itself and try to either get a match or at least coordinate, right? You also have in the swatch, you have ink stamps of the screen printing, the actual ink that was used to create that fabric. And you can use those pieces of the selvage to also select color. This is if you're trying to go for a match, and it's quite handy. So here's the finished outcome. I think it really pops on that fabric, coordinates with the border fabric that you see there on the left. And it's just, it's a great way to kind of lean on a designer's expertise of the colors that they chose to create the beautiful fabric. You already love that, right? That's why you bought it. Think of some of your, most popular designers like Kate Fawcett or Tula Pink, and they're masters of color, and you fall in love with their offerings. Take that fabric, go to your thread wall, and then make the combination of thread spools to produce the same outlook, the same combination, so that it will coordinate with those fabrics. That's how I, like to work. But also, that printed or the actual thread chart comes in quite handy. It really does. So, of course, I'm sure you're not surprised that today's special is all about thread. And this is our spring kit, the 24 spools. And look at those luscious, soft colors. Are they beautiful? I know. Here, I'm going to show you the stitch out. I did the little hexagon squares. Aren't they beautiful? They're so delicate. They are just lovely. Okay, do you hear the lawn? Our landscapers are outside. I hope you can't hear that because it's awful loud in here. Oh, well. But isn't that beautiful? It's just lovely. All these different colors. So I did pull a couple Kate Fawcett fabrics just to show you those soft colors and how lovely they blend. I know. It's just lovely. Sharon Smith, you say, oh, they are beautiful colors. They are, aren't they? They're just gorgeous. And Stephanie Hardy, you say, where did the time go? You're not ready for spring? Really? Well, let's ask Retha Ranke up there in Wyoming, where it was negative 20 degrees this morning. I'll bet she's ready for that. Kathy Colvin, she says, beautiful colors for spring. That's my sister-in-law, Kathy Colvin, up in Minnesota, and I imagine they're ready for spring up there too. And Phil Beck, your weakness. Yeah, beautiful threads. Mine too. Oh boy, very enticing. Sue Brown, aren't they pretty? Such a lovely combination. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the actual spools themselves, because I did lay them all out here. Aren't they gorgeous? They're just lovely. You know, they kind of look like Easter eggs, right? All the pretty colors of spring. And, you know, but they go with so many different colors. You know, you could stitch any of these on a deeper blue or a deeper purple, you know, or the white, the blue, or black, you name it. Lots of combinations. And let's see, Dinah, you are slowly building your exquisite line. That's smart. That's a good way to progress into your hobby. And you know what I like about these offerings, like a 24 pack, you're going to get a variety of colors. You're going to get yellows, pinks, blues, peach, teal, green, and, you know, three or four shades of each of those colors, so that you have light, medium, and dark. So it makes it really very usable. That's all I can say. Oh, let's see. My Facebook user says they remind me of jelly beans. Oh, I love that for sure. And Virginia, very calming colors. They are. Yeah, let's go ahead and take another look at them. We could put that overhead up there. And Roseanne Riley, your Wyoming friends are more than ready for spring. Oh, and Joyce, you like them. You're thinking of them as pastel M&Ms. Yeah, I agree. They are just really, really fun. So I have an exciting new product to share with you that is along the lines of thread organization. And we didn't invent this. This came to us from our friends in Louisiana, and called Laser Bee Studio. So if we can go to PowerPoint, I'll show you this new product. And these are called project trays. Now you might think, okay, what are they? Well, they come in packs of 2, and you can see they have engraved letters on them. Each tray has 12 different numbers, 1 through 12 on the first tray, 13 through 24 on the next tray. And the white circles that you see is actually dry erase board, and it comes with a dry erase marker, so that you can set up your threads at the machine in order. And if you have to repeat a color, which we often do in an embroidery design, that's where you write down the number that you're going to repeat. Like in this instance, color number 307 is used in both, I think, spot number 1 and spot 8. So I won't lose track. I'll have that number written down there. And as I'm advancing through the fabric, the thread colors, I'll know, oh, I need to apply 307 again, or, thread up the machine in 307. Now, if you have a multi-needle machine, you may think, oh, I don't really need this. Well, that stitch out that I did, let me show you. I'll bring that back over here so you can take a look. I'll just hold it up so that you can see. That's 24 thread changes on a 10 needle machine. So that means I had to do 10, 10, and 4. And I did not want to lose my order because I had it all organized in my embroidery design that I created in software. So I set my color order in the software design itself. And I wanted to duplicate what I saw on the computer screen on my machine. And the only way to do that is to stitch those colors in the right order. And boy, did those project trays come in handy. So here we can take a look at them under the camera, I guess. Or yeah, here, we'll move these Easter eggs, jelly beans, whatever you want to call them, right? And hopefully they won't move off the table. Okay, so I'll spin this around so that you're seeing it properly. And, I would put 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then what if I was going to repeat color 383 in color 5, then I would just do that. And then my next color would be there. And then when I take that to the machine and set it in front of the machine, oh, it's perfect. I'm ready to stitch. No problem. Absolutely no problem. And then when I'm done that design, I just take a cloth and remove that, and I'm all set for the next embroidery design. Isn't that awesome? Look at these things. They're so handy. They're just great. Yeah, so they do really have, so over here you can see what it looks like in the at the machine. And Sue Emden, you said ingenious. So you love this organization tool. Really is handy. Really is handy. Yeah, and let's see, Ann Philbin, she lines hers up and she says, this is much better. Well, you know what else is really nice about it? I line mine up too, but here over the overhead cam, you know, I can carry this. These are, well, I don't want to turn it on its side, but I can kind of, you know, it will eventually fall out. But these are, the bottom is set in. That's a pretty steep opening there. As you can see, it's at least 1/4 inch, if not 3/8. So it is going to hold your spools really handily. And you can, you know, move around your sewing room from your sewing wall over your thread wall over to your machine very easily without having to, you know, hold them in your hands or use another device. Yeah, I love them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just really awesome. They are, this is great. Yeah, okay, let's see. So what else do we have in store for you? Oh yeah, we talked about fabric storage. So do we have any questions about thread storage or, you know, anything that you want to talk about before we move on to fabric? Because in the past, we've had people ask about the life of thread, and, you know, the exquisite the exquisite polyester is obviously polyester. So it is not really affected by heat or cold. You can store it in a garage without any problem. It is a fiber. So, you know, it's best to keep it in a moderate climate, like inside. And, but they don't really age. And it's awesome. Let's see. Carolyn McPherson, does the embroidery tool shed print out the color, order, and number? Absolutely. So you bear with me just for a moment. I'll go into the software and I can show you that. Print preview. And go into my settings because I often don't have that shown. So here we go. I'll make this larger for you so you can see. There's my template, right? It has my crosshair, which is important, has the arrow pointing towards the top of the embroidery design because I want my butterfly to look like it's flying up and not flying down. So on the next page is my color sequence. And there it tells me by color, you know, color number 33, golden, exquisite thread, tells me the length. So, you know, if you're going to play bobbin or, you know, needle thread chicken, here you'll know just how much thread you're going to need. Now, it's kind of hard to estimate, you know, 9 yards of thread, like, you know, what does 9 yards of thread look like? But, well, it's a lot less than this, I can tell you that. So, but it's really handy, for sure. It's really handy. And it's showing you the segments of the embroidery design in that color. So if you want to, you know, switch out the color, you can. Let's see. Marianne de Blaglis wants to know, can you customize a thread chart in the software of the colors you already own? Not yet. You can't do that yet, but we're working on adding that as a free new feature in the software. So we'll let you know right here at Between Friends when that's added to the software, because I think it would be handy to be able to add your own palette, limit yourself to a palette. But I can tell you one thing that might help you in software. Let's go back into software, and here I'll show you the 24 pack, right? So here's the embroidery design that I created to stitch out that beautiful sample. And notice the 24 thread chips at the bottom of the design, right, are my spring pack. That's the 24 that are in there. And of course, I'm saving this design. So Marianne, if these were the only 24 thread colors that you had, you theoretically could bring a design, another design, into this design and use those color chips on the bottom to recolor the design that you want. So you just kind of sometimes have to, do a workaround, think out of the box, and that would just help you identify your colors. So let's see. And then one of our friends wants to know what's the free shipping code. So one of our team members will get that up there in a moment. Carolyn Doherty, can you install the software on an iPad? Not on an iPad. You can use it on a Mac computer, an Apple computer, and PC, but currently you can't do it on an iPad. Mm-hmm. You're welcome, Marianne. Okay, so where are we here? Let's see. Yeah, well, here, I'll just show you what it looks like when you're at the machine. That's where you are, right? So I line them up just like that. And as I work through the design there, I was stitching out Sunny Girl. And, it just, project trays are really handy. And so we do have them available today. And then the free shipping is 75 ship free. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. So let's talk a little bit about fabric storage. I'm not going to go into it really deep detail, but I'm just going to show you how I store my 1-yard cuts and my 2-yard cuts. And I use those comic book inserts. So let me kind of clean up my area here so I can show you some pretty fabrics. And so here we have a nice stack of fabrics, right? And they're all, these would sit on a shelf in my studio at home. They're falling down now because they don't, they wouldn't be sitting in that fashion. I would sit them on the shelf like this, but they're all the same size. So it helps me know how much fabric I can get on a shelf, and also, how much room is left. So I use the comic book chips. So this is just, we have a lot of white going on here. Let me get some a board so that you can see what I'm talking about. And this is so common. You can actually buy these in bundles of like 12 or 24 or something like that. It's just chipboard. That's all it is heavy cardboard. It's white. And then I cut them in half. I just use my rotary cutter and a ruler, and I cut it in half so that I have two sizes. The larger size I use for 2-yard cuts of fabric. As you can see here, these are bigger pieces of fabric. And what they do is they're inside, and they keep this nice and tidy and sorted. So I'll just show you on the smaller one how that works. So I'll undo this, and I am going to fold my fabric in thirds, and I'll lower this down so you can get a better look. And I place the cardboard chip about 5 inches from the bottom edge of the fabric, and then I fold up that lower edge, and then I fold in here. Do I? No, I don't do that yet. I pull this down, and then I fold this in, and then just over and over and over, and then I have a nice tidy fold, and I repeat that for all of my fabrics, my 1-yard cuts, and then they are all, secured, and they all turn out the same size. So that's my favorite thing, because that they're all the same size. I can coordinate them by color or theme or what have you, and store them on my shelf. So that's my go-to. That's what I do. How about you? What do some of you do? Lynn Shepard, you use them in. I missed. Ann Philbeck, you use the comic boards also, and let's see. There's a lot of. I'm sorry. What is the comic board and where do you get it? Just Google comic board cards, I think they're called. Comic book cards. And let's see. And Lynn, you used foam board at the Dollar Tree and cut it up into 8 pieces. Sure, you could do that. You can use regular cardboard, if you have that. You can even use poster board. It's a little too limp, but it would work. And basically, I want you to think about if you've ever been in, the ready-wear store, the Gap or something like that sells a lot of T-shirts. And when you see the employees folding T-shirts, they often use an insert so that all the T-shirts come out the exact same size. That's all we're doing. We're just putting an insert in there and folding it up so that each piece of fabric is folded the same size. And it's awesome. And then let's see, Pamela, you use a 4x4 for back quarters or anything less than a half yard. I do that too, but being that I have a lot of the smaller cuts, I don't leave the board in there. I use it to fold and then I take it out and then just reuse it because I have a lot of the smaller cuts. You know how that goes, right? Oh boy. Yeah, let's see. Comic board cards are acid-free. That's right, Lois. They're really, they're healthy for your fabric because you don't want to introduce anything else to it. And Laura Parks, you use fabric bolt cores. Yeah, that's another product that's available for purchase. It's kind of like a mini bolt cardboard so that you can wrap your fabric around it and use that. And let's see, Carolyn McPherson, you use clear shoe boxes and fold them so that you can get to the columns. Then you sort the boxes by color and so that you can see them at a glance. Good for you. That's super organized. I like that. I bet that's a beautiful way, both functionally and artistically, to store your fabric for sure. Okay, and fabric user, you slide the boards out after folding so you can stack more. That's a good idea, right? And I do that on my smaller cuts for sure. And sometimes you're just out of boards, right? So you make do. You use one to fold, and then there you have it. Let's see. So well, that's kind of my only 2 tips. In the image in Facebook, you saw some pretty rolled fabrics. A lot of times when you purchase fat quarters, they are rolled in a, they're rolled so that they're attractive to buy. But when I purchase them in that fashion, I immediately take them home and press them. So because I don't like them all curled up, I'd rather have them flat. And many people often ask, do I pre-wash my fabric? And I do not pre-wash my fabric. When I purchase it, I bring it home, fold it, and put it on the shelf. If it's a project that I know I'm going to be working on immediately, I think about that project and the life of it. Like, for instance, I've made crib sheets for my granddaughter. It's a really fun thing to make. It's super fast, and I can send it to them, and I know they'll use them because they need them, right? It's not like sending them a quilt every month, right? I can send a pretty crib sheet and it's adorable. And then they send me photos of her laying on the crib, in the crib. But that I do pre-wash because I know it's most certainly going to be laundered after they're using it. And so I do pre-wash that before I make the crib sheet. And if I'm making any quilted clothing, like a jacket or so forth, I will pre-wash that because, so I want the garment to fit me after I launder it. So I'll pre-wash that. But really for regular quilting, making quilts, most certainly art quilts or wall quilts, and even bed quilts, I don't launder that fabric first because I like the sizing that's in the fabric for the piecing process. It gives it a little bit more rigidity and, it gives me better seams. So I don't mind that. And then if there is a little bit of shrinkage after, the project is complete and quilted, really complete, that adds to the charm of the quilted project, right? Because you get a little bit of that, the loft that lifts up between the stitches, and that's really the charm of a quilt, right? So also, if it's an art quilt, you're never going to wash that. So I'm not going to wash it beforehand either. Okay, let's see. And Candy Bray, you wash after for quilts and pre-wash for garments. Great. That is absolutely a good rule of thumb. Margie Lund, how about red fabrics? Do you pre-wash? Well, that is scary. So I've done a couple things on red fabrics. I have cut a swatch off a corner and put it in the laundry with other items and analyzed it and see what happens. I also use a color, what are they called? They're by Tide. It's a color sheet, and you throw it in the wash and it pulls the dye that's in the water. If any dye comes into the water, it pulls it onto this sheet. And I'll tell you, it really works. I have not had any fabric bleed onto other fabrics or garments, that are in the wash with that color sheet. And it's awesome. Yeah. Carolyn Bruce, color catchers. That's the term. Thank you. And they really do. They work just fabulous. See, everybody seems to know that. I'm not the only one who does that. So if that's new to you, they're sold in the grocery store, in the laundry detergent aisle, and you can find it. Yeah. So Lynn Shepherd says use the color catchers when you pre-wash, and even if you don't pre-wash, just use it when you wash. But I don't know, the dyes today, the fabrics today are they seem to be, we don't have the bleeding that we had 10 years ago and so forth. I think that the industry has just gotten better at that. So okay, isn't that fun? Oh, fabric's so much fun. Now, we never want you to miss an episode of Dime Between Friends. So if you could just make sure to get notified, this is how you do it.
We want to make sure you are being notified every time we go live on Thursdays at 1 p.m. And here's a quick tutorial on how you can set up your live notifications. First, on your homepage, click on the search button. Look for us. Click on the 3 little dots on our page. A pop-up will appear. Select on Manage Follow Settings. Click on Live Videos and enable notifications. Make sure they're all set to all. Now you're all set.
So we never want you to miss an episode of Between Friends. And if you like to watch on YouTube, we would love for you to subscribe to our channel, because we're trying to grow that channel, and the more you watch, the more we'll offer. That's always kind of how it goes, right? So we most certainly appreciate all the time that you spend with Dime. And next week we have 2 Facebook Lives, because my good friend Ashley Jones is going to be back doing software on the 21st at 1 o'clock Central. So I hope that you'll tune in and join her for that. Boy, last week we learned so much from Ashley. So make sure that you do that. Absolutely. And then on the following Thursday, a week from today, I'll be back here for Between Friends, and I'm going to be revealing another new product and also the On the House free design for February. So I hope that you'll join me. And if you remember my good friend Sue Brown at OML Embroidery, she'll be doing a sew along on February 25th, Saturday, on her channel. So if you tune in here on the 23rd, you'll see the project and you'll know what she'll be stitching on Saturday. So I hope you'll join me then. I'm looking forward to that new product reveal. This week's On the House design is this a really adorable kind of split applique. Isn't that fun? So we have some Easter eggs and bunny ears, and you can write in there anything you'd like Happy Easter or somebody's name or whatever. So it's really adorable. And in this one, we actually are featuring King Star thread. So hopefully if you have some of that, you can use it to make this, whether you use Exquisite or the King Star. It'll look great in both. So thank you all for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you next week. In the meantime, happy stitching.